No one is truly born to live an ordinary life. You may have never said it out loud, but deep inside, there is a part of you that knows you were made for something greater, deeper, and more real. That part is still there, silent, like a small flame hidden beneath thick layers of ashes made of habits, the words of others, and the dreams you no longer dare to chase. Every morning, we put on a familiar face and step into the world as if that is all life has to offer. But sometimes in a quiet moment, when the morning sunlight touches your skin, or when the ticking clock echoes through an empty room, you can hear that whisper, "Is this all there is?" Strange, isn't it? People can live their entire lives without ever truly living. We work, love, chase success, and gather bits of hope just to be seen and approved by others. Yet in the late hours of the night, when every sound fades and only your breath remains, there is still an emptiness. That emptiness is not because something outside is missing, but because a part of you has never been allowed to speak. It is the part that wants to be itself without asking for permission, without needing to explain, without fitting into someone else's idea. But we are afraid that if we take off our masks, people will leave. Afraid that if we live honestly, we will lose love, jobs, or the place we fought to keep. And so, each day, we stay a little quieter, fold our dreams smaller, and tuck them away in a drawer called reality. Have you ever wondered what made us forget who we are? From very early on, the world began writing the answers for us. When you were a child, every action was rewarded or punished. You were loved when obedient, criticized when stubborn. You learned to measure your worth through the eyes of others. As you grew older, society taught you that happiness means a stable job, a home, and bright smiling photos online. But no one told you that if you live exactly as they say, sometimes you lose your soul along the way. The world does not mean to hurt you. It simply does not know how to love you as you are. And in trying to be accepted, you learned how to betray yourself. Nietzsche once wrote that most people have never truly lived. They only exist inside the molds built by others. He believed that within every human being lies a hidden power, a primal energy that makes us creative, proud, and free. But that power is trapped by obedience, by fear of rejection, by the endless teachings of who we should become. You can feel this within yourself, that tension between two worlds, one being the person you show, the other being who you truly are. One side is safe and familiar, the other, chaotic but alive. And every day, you choose the safe one, even as your heart keeps whispering, something isn't right. The world loves those who follow the rules, but secretly admires those who dare to break them. We celebrate the brave ones, the ones who live fully and differently, then go back to hiding ourselves in the crowd. You may think you're not special enough to do that. But remember, no one ever became extraordinary by being like everyone else. Greatness comes from daring to be real, from taking full responsibility for your own life. Every soul carries its own path, its own light, waiting for you to stop running away from it. I want you to imagine this. One morning you wake up and you are no longer weighed down by the must-do and must-be. You look in the mirror and see the eyes of the person you once lost, the one who dreamed, who believed, who wanted to create something truly their own. You walk outside, feel the wind against your skin, and know you are living not for anyone else, but for yourself. You do not try to be strong. You do not need to be understood. You are simply you, honest, simple, but radiant. Let that image live in your mind for a moment. It is not a fantasy. It is a reminder that you once were that person, and you can be that again. The sad truth is, most people will never feel that way. They will spend their whole lives inside the limits others drew and call it stability. They will trade freedom for approval, passion for predictability, and their true selves for the role the world prefers to see. But the real tragedy is not living that way. It is reaching the day when you look back and realize you had the chance to live differently, and you didn't dare to take it. No one can escape that moment. It comes when the years spent chasing the outside suddenly lose meaning. When you realize the only thing you ever wanted was to live without pretending. Maybe you are at that moment right now. It feels like standing at a crossroads, one path safe, the other uncertain and unknown. Your mind will tell you to choose safety, but your soul always knows. It wants you to take a step, even a small one, toward your own truth. And maybe that is why you are hearing this story today. It is not a coincidence, because sometimes life sends us a calling, and if we are quiet enough, we can hear it. And so the journey begins. Not a journey to find something new, but a journey back to yourself. There is no map, no instruction, only one question you must answer for yourself. Who would I be if I were not afraid? Let that question rest inside you like a seed not yet opened. Every awakening begins with a simple question, powerful enough to break through years of silence. And when that seed cracks open, the world you know will never be the same again. We are born into a world that already has its rules, its language, and the roles we are meant to play long before we can even speak. From the very first breath, we are placed in an invisible web where every gesture, every dream is observed, judged, and ranked. Adults call it education, responsibility, or guidance for the future. But in truth, that is when we learn our first lesson about adaptation, that to be loved, we must become who they want us to be. That to be accepted, we must blur the parts of ourselves that are most different. And so, little by little, we learn how to compromise with our true nature. When you were a child, you dreamed without fear. You believed you could be anyone, an artist, an astronaut, a dancer, a storyteller, but then you grew up. And as you grew, the world began teaching you how to live properly. You heard them say, choose something safe. Don't do anything foolish. Only this path will secure your future. At first, you resisted, but slowly, the voice inside became weaker. You began to repeat those same words to others and to yourself. What we call growing up became the art of forgetting the wild part of your heart, the part that once stayed up all night, drawing dreams, believing the world was bigger than the walls around you. Nietzsche once said that modern humans are exceptional actors. They play the roles of good person, successful person, kind person, so well that they forget their real face. We wear one mask outside, then another one at home. We learn when to smile, what to say to please others, and when to stay silent, though our hearts are screaming to speak. Slowly, we become experts at pretending to be fine. But the cost of that pretense is exhaustion and a deep sense of being lost within our own lives. At some point, we begin to wonder, is this still me, or only the role I forgot how to leave? Perhaps this is what Nietzsche called the trap of obedience. A golden cage, shiny and safe, so comfortable that those inside start to believe they are free. But you can see it in your own reflection at the end of the day, the empty look of someone who has lost their fire. We live in an age that praises safety, efficiency, and planned success. But those words, repeated long enough, become walls that suffocate our longing to live true. The tragedy is that most people do not realize they are imprisoned, because the door of the cage is already open. They have simply forgotten how to fly. There is a question few people dare to face. If I were not afraid of being judged, how would I live? We often believe that other people's approval guarantees happiness, but the truth is the opposite. It is the chain that keeps you where you do not belong. Every time you try to please someone, you trade a piece of your soul for a nod of approval. Over time, those small pieces disappear until you no longer recognize yourself. You become a collection of other people's desires, those of your parents, your friends, your society. And by the time you realize it, you have lived most of your life for others, while no one has truly known who you are. There is an image that often returns in people's dreams. They are running among a crowd, everyone dressed in the same color, walking the same way, breathing the same rhythm. At first, it feels safe because no one is lost. But then, as they look around, every face looks the same. No one speaks. No one stops. They just keep running, without knowing where. And then, at one bend in the road, one person stops, turns around, and looks back. The crowd pushes them down, calls them different, crazy. But in that very moment, they feel the wind on their face, the scent of real freedom. That is the moment of awakening. Yet awakening is never comfortable. It means facing the truth that we have let others define us for too long. It can make us angry, afraid, even wish to go back to sleep. Because when no one is telling you what to do, you must face the hardest question of all. Who am I without this role? That question feels like a deep abyss, but within it, A new kind of freedom begins to grow. Freedom is not the absence of rules, but the awareness to choose your own. The world easily forgives those who are weak, but it always condemns those who dare to be real. Because being real is an act of rebellion. It shakes the order, forces others to look at themselves, and not everyone has the courage to face that mirror. But if you have ever felt like you were acting, if you have ever been tired of pretending to be fine, that is a good sign. It means your soul is not completely asleep. It means there is still a part of you beating strongly, wanting to be heard. You can feel it in the smallest moments. When you play an old song that makes your heart ache. When you walk alone at night and miss something you cannot name. Or when you stand in a crowd and realize you do not belong there. Those moments are reminders. They do not come to hurt you, but to awaken the part of you that still believes in being yourself. Nietzsche once called those who follow that inner call the breakers of the loop. Because they refuse a programmed life, they choose uncertainty, but truth. There is a simple truth that most people fear to face. Living true always has a cost. You may lose friends, jobs, even the affection of loved ones. But you will find something none of those things can give the feeling of being fully alive. Just as trees can only grow tall when their roots reach deep into the earth, people can only be free when they dare to touch their own roots, even when those roots are messy, scarred, and imperfect. And perhaps true freedom begins when you stop trying to be right. When you no longer live by the shoulds and musts that the world has placed on your shoulders. When you dare to say no to what does not fit, even if it leaves you alone. Because sometimes, loneliness is the price of awakening. But it is also where you find yourself again whole, fragile, but real. Pay attention. Every time you dare to live honestly, even for a moment, the world around you changes. Not because it suddenly becomes better, but because the way you see it has changed. You begin to see beauty in imperfection, meaning in pain. You no longer need everyone to understand you, because you finally understand yourself. And in that moment, something miraculous happens. You are no longer anyone's shadow. You step into the light, with the eyes of someone who has just been born again. And then the question is no longer, how do I please them? But, how do I live without betraying myself? A question so small, yet powerful enough to change an entire life. No one grows up without scars, yet most of us spend half our lives avoiding them, avoiding pain, avoiding failure, avoiding the truth that it is our wounds that have shaped us. People still believe that happiness means calm, that peace only exists when there are no storms. But Nietzsche once said, "No mountain can rise high unless the earth beneath it has first been shaken." Maybe that is why, sometimes, what feels like our collapse is actually the beginning of our rebirth. Think back to the last time you fell hard. A relationship ended. A dream broke apart. A belief you thought would last forever turned to ashes. In that moment, the world seemed to fall apart. Everything lost its meaning. But something strange happened after that one morning. You woke up and realized you were still here, still breathing, even though nothing was the same. In that wreckage, there was a strange emptiness, a quiet space, where you began to see everything more clearly, what truly matters, and what was only illusion. That is the first moment of awakening. Not when we win, but when we face loss and still choose to rise. Nietzsche did not glorify suffering, but he understood that no strength is born out of ease. What does not kill me makes me stronger. The words may sound cold, but if you have ever walked through the depths of pain, you know they are true. Every wound carries a lesson no school could ever teach. It teaches us to let go of the illusion that life must be fair. It teaches us that resilience does not come from avoiding the storm, but from standing firm within it. The truth is, no one can heal you but yourself. Others can comfort you. They can listen, but no one can walk this path for you. Like the soil that must be broken before new seeds can grow, the human soul only truly opens after being hurt. Pain does not come to punish, but to prepare. It washes away what is false, removes what is unnecessary, and leaves only the purest part of you. But that only happens if you have the courage to face it, without running, without going numb. Maybe that is why those who have touched the depths of despair are often the ones who see life most clearly. They understand the value of a peaceful day, the miracle in small acts of love. And that true strength is not in never falling, but in lifting your head, even when your eyes are still full of tears. Sometimes, our wounds open a second pair of eyes, eyes of compassion, of understanding, of a soul that once burned fiercely and was reborn from its own ashes. Yet in the modern world, we are taught to avoid pain. We press mute, scroll through screens, smile until we forget how to feel. We forget that pain is not the enemy, but the messenger. It comes to tell us that something within is longing to change, longing to be seen. And if we listen long enough, it will show us the way, not outward, but inward. Pain is a mirror for the soul. It reveals what we have not yet dared to admit: our pride, our fear of being left behind, the fragility we try so hard to hide. No one wants to look into that mirror, but only by facing it do we discover who we truly are. Growth does not come from age, but from the moments you look straight at your wound and say, "I will not let this define me." From that moment, you begin to rewrite your story, no longer the one who is hurt, but the one learning to love themselves. Sometimes, in lonely nights, you might ask, "Why did this happen to me?" But perhaps the better question is, what am I meant to learn from this? Because every pain, when understood, becomes a kind of wisdom. It slows you down, makes you observe more carefully, feel more deeply. You start to notice the small things: a ray of sunlight through the curtain, the warmth of a morning cup of coffee, a stranger's smile on the street, things once invisible when you were chasing distant happiness. If you are walking through a difficult time, trust that this is not the end. It is only the stretch of road you must cross to see how strong you truly are. No light ever holds meaning if it has not known darkness. And if you are hearing these words now, maybe your soul simply needs a reminder you have survived before, and you will survive again. And if something I said resonates with you even just a little, let me know. A comment, a message, a small sign is enough. Not for numbers, but as a reminder that in this noisy world, we are still walking together through something deeply human, learning to endure, learning to rise, learning to love, even after being hurt. Because true strength does not come from hiding our scars, but from letting the light shine through them. No one was born to remain weak. Every time your heart breaks, it expands a little more. And one day, you will realize that what once caused you pain has become the very thing that made you deeper, braver, and more real than ever before. That is the nature of transformation. From ashes, a new flame is born, no longer burning in chaos, but glowing steadily, quietly, as a light within. And perhaps, in the moment you finally embrace everything that once brought you to your knees, you will become the strongest person you have ever known. No meaning is given to us in advance. Life does not come with a manual, and there is no invisible hand writing the right path for each person. Everything we call purpose, destiny, or the meaning of life is a story we invent because we cannot bear the emptiness of uncertainty. We grow up in a world that always asks, "What will you become when you grow up?" but rarely asks, "Who do you want to be when you are alone?" So we keep searching for answers outside ourselves, in work, in love, in recognition, in everything that can make others nod with approval. Yet the more we chase, the farther we drift from who we truly are. Nietzsche believed that life has no inherent meaning, only the potential to be defined. Meaning is created by people, through action, through choice, through courage, but we have forgotten that power. We live as if meaning is a gift someone will someday hand us, as if we must deserve something beyond our reach. And when we fail to find it, we become disappointed, empty, and blame fate. Yet fate has never been the one in control. It is only an empty frame, and the way we live is the real painting. There is a paradox everyone must face. We all desire freedom, yet we fear the responsibility that comes with it. Freedom means that no one else is responsible for your life. Not your parents, not your circumstances, not even God. And that is terrifying. Because if all meaning is created by us, then there is no one left to blame when life feels meaningless. Nietzsche called that the emptiest moment. The point when a person realizes there is no foundation to hold on to except themselves. But it is also the very moment when, if you are brave enough, real life begins. Imagine standing at a crossroads with no signs, no directions, no voice telling you which way to go. Every path is open and therefore frightening. Most people, when faced with that moment, choose to turn back, even knowing that the road behind leads nowhere. But a few stop, listen to their heartbeat, and take a step toward a direction they cannot predict. Those are the ones who find meaning not because the path was given, but because they dared to choose it. We are afraid of uncertainty, yet it is within uncertainty that real life begins. Everything of value, love, creativity, growth is born from the soil of the unknown. When you stop searching for a map and start writing your own, every step becomes an answer. Nietzsche did not say that life is meaningless. He said that meaning is not pre-written. It must be created every day. Through your choices, through how you face adversity, through the way you love something even when you know it will not last. There is a kind of peace that only comes when you accept that not everything needs a reason. That maybe to live, to breathe, to simply be here is already enough. Life itself carries meaning, even when we cannot name it. But to feel that, you must remove the layers of expectation the world has wrapped around you. You must dare to ask, which beliefs am I carrying that are not truly mine? You must be willing to let go of inherited values to discover what truly moves you. This is not an easy journey. When you begin to dismantle your old beliefs, you will feel lost. No one to guide you, no standard to hold on to. People around you might not understand. They will say you are changing, that you are selfish, that you are losing yourself. Yet strangely, only when everything around you falls apart do you begin to find your core. That loneliness is not a sign of loss. It is the doorway to freedom. When you start living for yourself, you will notice the world reacting differently. There will be no applause, only silence. The silence of those who have not yet dared. The silence in their eyes that is part admiration, part fear. And within that silence, you will hear your own footsteps more clearly than ever. That sound is the sound of someone creating meaning for their own life. To live meaningfully is not to live correctly, but to live with awareness. It is knowing why you do something and being willing to own the outcome, whether good or bad. It is when you no longer need validation because your existence itself is enough. It is choosing to love even if it hurts, to trust even after betrayal, to continue even when failure is possible, because living means continuously choosing. And in every choice, you leave a trace of yourself upon the world. Many will ask, if life has no inherent meaning, then why live? Nietzsche would answer, to create meaning. You might create it through music, through work, through raising a child, or simply by being authentic in a world that pretends. The form does not matter. What matters is that you are creating, not repeating. Every day, you choose how to see life, and that choice itself is meaning. Once you realize this, the fear of meaninglessness disappears, because there is nothing left to be given. Everything you need is already within you in your ability to see, to feel, to love, to take responsibility. You no longer ask, does life have meaning? But, am I living with my whole heart? And if the answer is yes, then no matter how brief this life may be, it is already complete. Perhaps the true meaning of life is not in finding a reason to exist, but in living in such a way that you no longer need one. In that state, every breath, every pain, every fleeting moment becomes part of a vast painting only you can create. And only then will you understand the simple truth Nietzsche left behind. He who has a why to live can bear almost any how, but that why no one else can give it to you, it can only come from you. At some point, you will realize that you can no longer go on living without knowing who you truly are. Everything outside work, success, love, fame is only a faint reflection in the mirror. You may convince others that you are fine, but when the night comes, one question echoes in your mind. Who am I when no one is watching? That question can feel terrifying at first, because behind what you think is yourself may only be a chain of habits, reactions, and borrowed beliefs. Yet that is where awakening begins the moment you dare to look directly into that emptiness, even though it feels cold and offers no ready-made answer. Nietzsche once said that most people never truly know themselves. They live in a fog of expectations, repeating values they were taught without ever stopping to ask, does this really belong to me? And so they pass through life as actors, not as living beings. To begin the process of self-awareness, you must be willing to peel away the layers the world has placed on you. The layer of being good, the layer of being successful, the layer of being loved. Because behind them, There might only be a fragile self that has never been seen. Yet from that very place, your real self can finally emerge. Self-awareness is not just about sitting in silence or meditating. It is about facing yourself in the moments that are not beautiful, when you are jealous, angry, afraid, or weak. That is when you learn to observe without judgment. You begin to understand that every emotion is a signal, not an enemy. Anger may hide pain. Pride may cover an old wound. Fear may be the child within you begging to be protected. And when you listen instead of running away, you realize that no part of you deserves to be erased, only understood. But understanding is not enough. Nietzsche called the next step self-overcoming. Awareness without action is only theory. Once you recognize what binds you, you must have the courage to break it. Maybe it is the fear of rejection that makes you please everyone. Maybe it is the belief that you are not worthy that keeps you small. Or maybe it is the habit of blaming others that keeps you stuck. Each barrier is like old skin, and to grow, you must shed it, even if it hurts. To rise above yourself does not mean to deny your past, but to turn it into fuel for growth. The failures that once brought you shame can become lessons that teach compassion. The pains that once closed your heart can become light that helps you understand others. Every mistake, when seen through the eyes of awareness, becomes a brick in the foundation of inner strength, and slowly, you begin to understand that the goal is not perfection, but authenticity to be so real that you no longer fear yourself. Someone may ask, how do I know if I am on the right path? The answer is this: when you no longer feel the need to prove anything, when your actions rise from inner calm, instead of fear of missing out or craving recognition. When you stop chasing an ideal image and start living fully with what is here, then life stops being a competition and becomes a journey of discovery, not to conquer others, but to meet yourself again. However, this journey is not for the faint of heart. The deeper you go within, the more you encounter parts of yourself that are uncomfortable: selfishness, desire, the need for control, the fear of being forgotten. Most people stop there. They return to the safety of, I'm fine. But those who dare to continue discover something remarkable. Those parts do not need to be destroyed, only accepted. When you stop fighting yourself, everything begins to soften. Forgiveness appears, and with it, peace. Self-overcoming is not about climbing to a higher peak, but about returning to reconcile with every part of who you are, both light and shadow. When you dare to look at your fear and name it, it loses its power. When you dare to touch your pain, it becomes a doorway to understanding. And when you release what no longer fits, you create space for something new to enter. Nietzsche believed that a person can be reborn many times within one life. Each time you let go of an old version of yourself, a new one is born. You might ask, can I really change? The answer is yes, but not by trying to become someone else. Rather by slowly letting go of everything that is not truly you. This process is quiet. It happens in the moments you choose honesty over silence, forgiveness over revenge, courage over delay. These small choices, repeated day after day, create a silent revolution within you. And then, one day, you will realize that the things you feared most, failure, loss, loneliness, were your greatest teachers. They taught you how to stand up without applause. They taught you that your worth does not depend on recognition. They taught you that even when everything falls apart, there is a part of you that remains untouched, the core, strong and unbreakable. That is your true essence, the one you have been searching for all along. Nietzsche once said, "One must still have chaos within to give birth to a dancing star." And perhaps what he meant was not that you must be perfect to shine, but that you must embrace the chaos within you. Only when you accepted all the beauty and the flaws, the strength and the fear, can you step into life as a truly free being. When that happens, everything around you changes, not because the world itself has changed, but because you are seeing it through new eyes, the eyes of someone who no longer fears themselves, who no longer searches for meaning outside, because they have found it within. And that is the first step toward true freedom. There is one thing Nietzsche always reminded us of, that it is not pain or failure that makes people weak, but fear. Fear of loss, fear of judgment, fear of change, and fear of their own power. That fear seeps into every choice we make, keeping us from moving forward even when our souls are longing to evolve. We call it by softer names. I'm not ready yet. "This isn't the right time. I'm not good enough." But in truth, these are gentle ways of saying we are running away. It is never ability, we lack only the courage to face the fear that has ruled us for too long. Fear cannot be reasoned away, because it is instinct. It lives in the body, in memory, in every experience that once hurt us. Each time we are criticized, abandoned, or betrayed, we unconsciously build another wall. Over time, we surround ourselves with a fortress that feels safe, but is actually a prison. And the cruel irony is that we are the ones holding the key. Freedom has always been right outside, just one step away. But that step demands that we walk straight through the territory of fear. No one can do it for us. Nietzsche believed that courage is not the absence of fear, but the willingness to act in spite of it. Fear does not fade by waiting for it to pass. It weakens only when we confront it. Every time you do something that makes you tremble, you reclaim a piece of your freedom from its grip. Think back to the last time you faced your fear. Even in something small, speaking a truth, trying something new, saying no to what was wrong for you. Your heart was pounding, but it was also glowing. In that moment, you crossed the edge of your own limits. And that feeling, brief yet electrifying, is the true taste of being alive. But there is a more dangerous enemy than fear itself. Nietzsche called it resentment. Resentment. Resentment begins when we start to blame. When life doesn't go our way, instead of looking inward, we look outward. We blame circumstances, other people, the past. We tell ourselves that if it weren't for them, we could have been different. Resentment gives us a false sense of control, as if we are right, but it is actually the most refined form of weakness. Because the moment you blame, you hand over your power to something outside yourself. Resentment is a slow-burning fire. It doesn't burn the world. It burns the heart that carries it. Those who live in resentment see themselves as perpetual victims. They see life as unfair, others as luckier, themselves as powerless. But Nietzsche would say this is self-surrender. Only when you stop blaming can you begin to change. Only when you say, "I am responsible for how I respond," does your power return. No one can save you if you insist on staying the victim. Sometimes resentment hides quietly. It disguises itself in gentle phrases like, "I did my best. Others have more opportunities. I wasn't born for that." They sound honest, but they are smokescreens for fear of action. Nietzsche believed that humans have only two choices: either create their lives or blame others. And sadly, most choose the latter because it is easier, because it does not demand transformation. But the truth remains, no one is holding you back except you. He also proposed a spiritual experiment called eternal recurrence. Imagine that you must live this exact life again every moment, every choice, every fear over and over, forever, without change. Every joy, every mistake, every silence when you should have spoken, all of it repeats endlessly. If that thought frightens you, it means you are not yet living truly. Because only when you can say, "I would live this life again," are you truly free. This idea was never meant to scare, but to awaken. It forces us to see the present differently. If this is the only life you have, are you living it as you truly want? If this were your one chance to speak your truth, would you stay silent? If this moment were the only one that mattered, would you still choose fear? Nietzsche believed that this question is the torch that lights our lives because it leaves no place for postponement. You might think, "I'll change," but not yet. That is the sweetest lie fear ever told. Because not yet never comes. Life only happens now. Every real choice must be made in this moment. And right here, when you stop making excuses, stop blaming, stop waiting for a miracle, is when you take back control of your life. You don't need a grand step, just a small one. A phone call you've been avoiding, a truth you've been hiding, a decision you've been postponing. Just begin. When you dare to act, you are no longer a prisoner of fear. Every trembling step reveals a new part of who you are. And slowly, you discover that courage is not a gift, but a habit. It is built each time you choose to face instead of flee, to take responsibility instead of shifting blame. And one day, you will wake up with a strange feeling. Fear is still there, but it no longer controls you. You see it now as an old companion who once held you back, but now simply watches from the side of the road. Nietzsche once said that people become truly free only when they stop resenting, because then they are no longer victims of the world, but creators of it. And the moment you release resentment, you will feel a quiet lightness, not because life has become easier, but because you no longer need it to be. All you need to know is that you can face it, choose within it, and continue forward. Fear, after all, is not something to erase. It is an invitation. Every time fear appears, it whispers, something important is here. And if you dare to walk through it, on the other side, a greater version of yourself is waiting. You only need one moment of courage, that single moment, when you say, I will no longer let fear decide for me. From that instant, everything begins to change. Not the world, but you. And when you change, the world changes too. Perhaps the most important thing Nietzsche wanted to say was not how to become strong, but how to become real. Strength is the result, not the goal. The goal, if there is one, is to live so that every breath belongs to you, not borrowed, not performed. To reach that state, Nietzsche spoke of the Übermensch, the one who has transcended their own limits to become the highest version of themselves, a person who not only lives, but creates their own life. The Übermensch is not a saint or a superhero. They still feel fear, still fail, still lie awake at night like everyone else. But the difference is, they do not let those things define them. They touch their fear without letting it lead them. They fall, but never see it as an ending. They live not to please others, nor to be understood. They simply live truthfully, and that truth sets them free. In a world where everyone tries to be right, they choose to be real. And perhaps that is the most revolutionary act a human being can do. People like this do not search for meaning. They create it. They do not wait for validation. They give themselves worth. They understand that morality, rules, and norms are all human inventions, born out of fear and the need for control. So the Übermensch does not live by other standards, but creates their own. What makes them feel alive is right. What makes them honest with themselves is their morality. They need no one's approval because they have already accepted themselves. Imagine such a person. Someone walking quietly through a crowded city. Not loud, not showy, yet something in their eyes makes you stop and look. A calmness that comes not from arrogance, but from understanding. They do not need to prove, to argue, or to win, because they know the greatest victory is no longer being controlled by what is not real. Nietzsche once wrote, "He who cannot command himself will always be a servant. The one who cannot master themselves will forever be a slave, no matter how much power they hold." Becoming the Übermensch is not a destination, but a journey with no end. Every day, you must overcome an older version of yourself. Every fear, every doubt, every urge to return to safety is an invitation to choose to keep becoming or to stop. Nietzsche did not believe in perfection. He believed in becoming. Because humans never stand still, we are either expanding or shrinking. And which direction we choose is always in our hands. Sadly, most people hear this philosophy as inspiration and let it pass by. They find it beautiful, profound, but do nothing. They nod in agreement, then return to their old fears, their old loops. Nietzsche once said, philosophy is not meant to be read, but lived. An idea only has power when it becomes action. So the question is no longer, do you understand this? But what will you do with it today? Start with something small, a decision you've been avoiding, something you know is right, but have been too afraid to do, a limit you once believed you could never cross. You don't need to change the world, just one thing within yourself. Because the moment you take even half a step forward, your inner world is no longer the same. And that small, honest shift is the beginning of the Übermensch within you. Freedom doesn't arrive the day you have everything. It arrives the moment you no longer need to have anything. When you stop chasing approval, stop fearing misunderstanding, stop avoiding pain, you become untouchable. A person like that cannot be controlled because they need nothing but truth. They can lose everything and still stand tall because they understand that meaning lies not in what you have, but in how you live. And when you live that way, every small thing becomes sacred. One morning, when sunlight falls across your hand, you may smile for no reason. Not because you've won, not because you are loved, but simply because you are alive fully, without needing to prove it. In that moment, you realize life never needed to have meaning, because you are its meaning. But to reach that place, you must dare to let go. Let go of the hope that someone will save you. Let go of the illusion that one day everything will finally be fine. Let go of the need to be understood. When all of that falls away, only what is true remains, the part of you that cannot be taken, the part even time cannot touch. That is you, original and infinite. Nietzsche believed that life begins when you can say yes to everything, to joy and to pain, to light and to shadow. Amor fati, love of fate. Not passive acceptance, but a deep love for it, as you would love a song that holds both sorrow and beauty. When you can love even what once broke you, nothing can scare you anymore. Because life is no longer something you endure, but something you co-create. And then you will see, no one has ever truly held you back. Not society, not circumstance, not anyone. The only thing that ever bound you was your own fear and hesitation. But the moment you decide to step out of that role, you become free. Life remains the same, yet the way you see it changes, and that alone changes everything. This moment, as you listen to these words, is not an ending. It is a beginning, the point where you stand between two worlds, one safe but small, the other vast and free. No one can choose for you. And if today you choose to take even one small step forward, know that you have already begun to become the person you were born to be. You need no miracle, no perfection, only a quiet, steady whisper in your heart that says, I am ready to live true. Thank you for staying with me until the very end of this story. If this message touched your heart, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss the next journey we take together. Your support means the world to me.